It's the second day of Lent 2022. Thought I'd make a quick word about my goals before I start the day. As you guys know, my goal for Lent 2022 is to stop masturbating for 40 days. And I don't think it is necessarily unhealthy to masturbate. I think I had an unhealthy relationship with it, and I want to take better control of how and when it happens and all that. I think I've had trouble with other people because of my desires to masturbate. I would be rushed to finish things, and sometimes I would be at I would need to have a conversation with somebody, but my body was calling the shots on how long I was allowing myself to hold that conversation. Often it didn't work out very well, right? So for example, I recently had to replace my car. This is a Kia Forte that I'm driving. I hope you guys don't miss the Mitsubishi Lancer. But when I went to the car dealer, this was after I had stopped masturbating, I felt a lot freer to take my time with the negotiation. When I used to masturbate, the negotiation I had with this car could never happen the way it did. I used to masturbate 5 to 10 times a day. And I don't necessarily want to quit masturbating after the 40 days are over, but I want to take better control of how it happens. Because too many times I was living in a house with my landlord, and I got angry at him because he's a chatterbox, and I needed to get away from him to masturbate, and I destroyed things in his home. And that's the kind of behavior that a masturbating addiction can bring about, right? But my landlord was out of control. I'm going to talk about two things that drove me nuts. I was cooking some eggs, and he insisted that I could use this other cookware. And then after he gave it to me, he insisted on certain flavorings that I could have had. And okay, and then another day I had a bad event happen at work. I just wanted to come home to recharge. He keeps a lot of clutter in his home, so I didn't want the lights on too high. So I only turned one set of lights on, and he comes over and goes, "Do you need some lights?" And he starts switching lights on and off. And you know, in a normal day, I would have told him, "No, that's okay, that's okay." But I was already stressed out. I had accidentally misplaced a few things. My computer wasn't working correctly. I'm an adjunct professor, and some of my students had missed class, and I had to chase them down. I was already stressed out with a lot of stuff. I didn't need him on top of that. And then on top of that, I wanted him to go away so I could finish eating so I can go masturbate. Two of my strongest addictions. And I learned that from this experience, and to a lesser extent from the food experience as well last year, it's hard to recognize you have an addiction when you can freely do it, right? That's why some of the worst addictions in the world are the most socially acceptable ones, right? Your food, your caffeine, to a lesser extent nicotine, to a lesser extent alcohol. Most people can more or less freely do those things, so they don't recognize they have a problem until something stops them from doing it, right? They get into a drunk driving accident, or I think the guy who rear-ended me was drunk, by the way, so that's why I bring up the alcohol. Or their eating gets socially in the way, right? They get into a fight with somebody. Or, if they're more lucky, they get fat from eating, so they recognize they have to do something, right? Or, in the case of masturbating, they can't even spend time with their girlfriend because they would prefer to masturbate, right? That's the kind of problem I run into a lot, right? But the problem is, when you can freely do it, especially during 2020, right? When you can freely masturbate and nobody's going to bother you over it, it's hard to recognize you have an addiction. And so I learned from these last couple of Lents. Lent is a good holiday to recognize this, that addiction works back to front, right? You recognize you have an addiction when you don't practice what it is that you're addicted to, right?